We're getting some breaking news. India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has called out the fake news by Reuters. The article titled "India Shelves Plan on Countrywide Ban on Single-Use Plastic Products." The article claimed that India has held off imposing a blanket ban on single-use plastics to combat pollution. In fact, Prasar Bharati has tweeted and called it fake news by Reuters and further said, and I quote, "There was never a blanket ban in the works against single-use plastic. Prime Minister's appeal and thrust has always been about a mass movement against the scourge of single-use plastics. India today is on the verge of starting a historic movement against single-use plastic, setting an example for the world," unquote. So Prasar Bharati there calling out the fake news which is being peddled by Reuters as far as single-use plastic ban in India is concerned, saying that that this is entirely fake news which is being peddled. There was never a blanket ban in the works against single-use plastic. And our editor Niranjan joining us on the broadcast. He joins us on the phone line. Niranjan, over to you. First and foremost, take us through the contents of the article which was published by Reuters, and then we'll talk about what exactly has been said by Prasar Bharati.
Well, there was a news article that was put out, and in fact, the news article spoke about, was quoting sources and spoke about how there was a blanket ban in the works against single-use plastics. So there was an article that was put out, and Prasar Bharati, which is the government news agency, has just put out a full thread. It's calling out the fake news by a foreign news agency, saying that there was never a blanket ban in the works against single-use plastic. Prime Minister's appeal and thrust has always been about a mass movement against the scourge of single-use plastics. Talking about how India today is on the verge of starting a historic movement against single-use plastic, setting an example for the world. Specifically talking about, this article, it spoke about, or rather claimed that India has shelved the plan on countrywide ban on single-use plastic products. And in fact, the article written by an author based in India had said that India had held off imposing a blanket ban on single-use plastics to combat pollution. A measure the article claimed was seen as too disruptive for industry at a time when it is coping with an economic slowdown and job losses. Now, as far as the Prasar Bharati News Service is concerned, the government news agency, which is speaking on behalf of all the government news services, including Doordarshan, All India Radio, and All India Radio World Service, this is the news network of India's public broadcaster, has said, and they've put the facts on the table, saying there was never a blanket ban in the works against single-use plastic. He spoke, and it talks about how the Prime Minister appealed about a mass movement against use of single-use plastic, talking about how we are starting a historic movement against single-use plastic. And to imagine, Prasar Bharati has added, to imagine a fictitious ban and then to claim it has been shelved is reflective of the polemical approach of international news agencies that are looking to stoke controversies and spread negativity. On a day when we mark 150 years of Gandhiji's birth, such falsehoods do no justice to 1.3 billion Indians. Tribute to Gandhi in the fight against single-use plastic. So the government calling out the fake news.
Right, certainly, Niranjan. In fact, we're joined by Sriram Cholia on the phone line to talk to us in detail about this and as to what he really feels about this entire controversy which has now erupted. Mr. Cholia, now Reuters is of the opinion, has in fact come out with an article and it's titled "India Shelves Plan on Countrywide Ban on Single-Use Plastic Products." Now, India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has called out that fake news and has in fact said that there was never a blanket ban in the works against single-use plastic. What do you have to say?
Kind of spin, many of the Western news agencies are putting out. They tried to belittle our achievement with Chandrayaan-2. They have been claiming that there is a massive clampdown in Kashmir after Article 370. They have a general grudge against our Prime Minister and the progressive agenda that he is pushing. Most of them believe that they cannot stomach India's rise. So, it's a good point that the government and our agencies are calling out the fake news, but they should issue a correction. A lot of these sensational headlines they put out are meant to show India in poor light. And this is part of an organized conspiracy. Many of these editors, so Western liberals, have inbuilt hatred for India, and they think that India should be put in its place and it should be checked. So the rise of India, they are trying to portray it as in a negative light. Many of them say there is a Hindutva agenda and that, major minorities are suffering, there is intolerance. So this is all part of this. I see this as not just carelessness or an editorial mistake, but part of a broader agenda to run down
At a time when India is trying to come up with some good initiatives, is trying to bring about some change, is trying to work towards a cleaner India, we have these Western media outlets which are time and again propagating fake news, be it on Chandrayaan, like you rightly pointed out, or Kashmir, and now also on ban of single-use plastic. For the moment, thank you, Mr. Cholia, for joining us with those details and your views.